one person's world is uprooted by conquest and war. He was just a boy, stripped from everything he knew, and thrust into a foreign land, ruled by conquerors wielding absolute authority. They took his name, his people, and his freedom, yet his devotion to God remained untouched. Surrounded by strangers and enemies, he faced dangers that could end his life at any moment, where every choice carried the promise of both reward and risk. Daniel's story is one of unshakable courage, wisdom, and extraordinary miracles. But how did he do it? How did one man remain true to his beliefs in a world that demanded his conformity? People whispered about him, wondering what set him apart. The prophet whose wisdom was unmatched, his insight both feared and admired. A man whose faith and integrity shone bright amidst treachery and danger. This is the story of Daniel. The city was in distress. Jerusalem had just surrendered to Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar after a series of sieges. The Babylonian soldiers poured into Jerusalem to enforce their rule. They seized the palace, taking treasures and preparing them for Babylon. Even the temple was raided, its sacred vessels carried away. A survey of the population began, seeking the brightest, noblest youth in Jerusalem. The selection was deliberate, intelligent, handsome, noble. Daniel was among the chosen, torn from his home and put on the march to Babylon. Among the elite chosen for royal training were Daniel and 3 of his companions. They were brought into the Babylonian royal court and forced to adapt to its ways and customs. Their names were changed to honor foreign gods. Daniel became Belteshazzar, and his companions became Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel and his companions faced their first test in the royal court. They were offered the king's rich and tempting food, meant to train them for service. But Daniel refused to defile himself. So he told the guard in charge,
"Test us for 10 days. Give us only vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then, compare our appearance with the others who eat the royal meals."
The guard agreed, and so a 10-day trial was set in motion. And when it was over, the outcome of their test was plain for all to see. The officials and guards closely observed everyone who had taken part in the food test. Daniel and his friends emerged healthier and better nourished than all who had eaten the king's meals. So the guard set aside the royal food and wine from that point on, giving them only vegetables and water. At the end of their training, Daniel and his 3 companions were presented to King Nebuchadnezzar. The king spoke with all the youth and found none equal to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In every matter of wisdom, they were 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters of Babylon. Because of their exceptional abilities, Daniel and his companions were appointed to serve in the king's court. Their wisdom and skill set them apart, elevating them to positions of influence and authority within Babylon. Their choice had not weakened them. It had made them thrive, for the Lord was with them. In the 2nd year of his reign, King Nebuchadnezzar had a troubling dream. Sleep escaped him, and his mind churned with visions he could not understand. He summoned his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers.
"Tell me my dream and its meaning. If you fail, you and your families will be cut to pieces. But if you succeed, gifts and honor will be yours."
The wise men trembled before him. None could explain his dream. Fury swept through the king. Then he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. As the decree went out, guards were sent to carry it into effect, also seeking Daniel and his companions among the exiles from Judah. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, arrived to carry out the executions, Daniel approached him and asked about the king's decree. Arioch explained the king's anger and the threat to all the wise men. Daniel then asked for time, requesting a chance to interpret the dream before anyone was harmed. He returned home and shared the crisis with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Together, they prayed to God, asking that the mystery of the king's dream be revealed to them. As he was sleeping at night, God revealed the vision to Daniel in a dream. When he woke up, Daniel understood the vision and praised God for his power. Daniel then sought out King Nebuchadnezzar and was led to him. The king demanded to know both the content of his dream and its interpretation. Daniel said to him,
Human wisdom cannot reveal this, but God in heaven who makes mysteries known has revealed your dream to me.
Daniel described the vision: a massive statue, dazzling and imposing. Its head was gold, its chest and arms silver, its belly and thighs bronze, its legs iron, and its feet a mix of iron and clay. Then Daniel told of the rock striking the statue's feet, shattering it completely, and growing into a mountain that filled the whole earth. He explained the interpretation. The golden head represented Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, supreme over all. The following kingdoms would rise, each weaker than the one before, ending with a divided, unstable kingdom. But God's kingdom, represented by the rock, would endure forever, crushing all others and standing eternal. At this, Nebuchadnezzar was filled with awe and honored Daniel, declaring his God, the God of gods, and the revealer of mysteries. As a reward, the king elevated Daniel to a high position, giving him authority over the entire province of Babylon and placing him in charge of all its wise men. At Daniel's request, his 3 companions were also appointed administrators, serving under him in the royal court. Many years passed, and the kingdom of Babylon passed from Nebuchadnezzar to his successors. Daniel remained in the royal court, serving faithfully and witnessing the reigns of many kings. By this time, Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, held the throne. One evening, King Belshazzar held a great banquet for 1,000 of his nobles. As they drank wine, he commanded that the gold and silver goblets, taken from the temple in Jerusalem by his grandfather, be brought in. The king and his companions drank from them, praising the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, idols that could neither see nor hear nor understand. Suddenly, the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the palace wall. The king watched in terror as the mysterious inscription formed. All the guests in the hall were shaken and afraid. Belshazzar then summoned his wise men, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners, but none could read the writing or explain its meaning. The queen, hearing the commotion, entered the banquet hall and reminded Belshazzar of Daniel. She recounted how his grandfather had made Daniel chief over all the wise men because of his exceptional wisdom. She said,
"Send for Daniel, and he will interpret the writing for you."
Daniel was brought before the king, who recognized his reputation. Belshazzar asked him to interpret the writing on the wall, offering rich rewards, but Daniel refused it. He reminded Belshazzar of his grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar, whose greatness had been given by the Most High God, yet whose pride led to his humiliation, living like an animal, until he acknowledged that heaven rules over all. Then Daniel confronted Belshazzar directly, stating that despite knowing this history, he had not humbled himself. Instead, he had exalted himself against the Lord of heaven, desecrated the sacred vessels from God's temple, and honored lifeless idols of metal and stone. Because of this defiance, God had sent the hand that wrote the message on the wall. Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. Mene means God has numbered the days of your reign. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. At Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in purple. A gold chain was placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Yet that very night, the king was slain, and Darius the Mede eventually took over the kingdom, ruling for the days to come. After the reign of Belshazzar and the rise of Darius the Mede, the kingdom was vast and divided among many officials. King Darius, wise and thoughtful, appointed 120 leaders to govern the land, with 3 officials overseeing them to ensure order and fairness. Among these officials was Daniel, a man of remarkable character and unwavering faith. His wisdom and integrity quickly set him apart, earning the trust of the king and the intention to place him over the entire realm. Jealous of Daniel's success, the other officials and leaders sought a way to accuse him. They found no corruption, no carelessness. He was blameless. At last, they realized the only way to trap him was through his faith in God. They approached King Darius together and persuaded him to issue a decree that anyone who prayed to any god or man besides the king over the next 30 days would be thrown into a den of lions. The law of the Medes and Persians could not be altered, and the king, though uneasy, signed the decree. Unknowing to him, he was signing a decree that would target Daniel. When Daniel learned of the law, he went home to his upper room, windows open toward Jerusalem, and prayed 3 times a day, giving thanks to God as he had always done, for he was a man of steadfast devotion. The conspirators watched closely and soon caught Daniel in the act, praying just as they expected. They rushed to the king with their accusation, reminding him of the decree and insisting that Daniel had violated it. When Darius heard their words, his heart sank. He valued Daniel and knew he had been deceived into condemning an innocent man, and so he searched for a way to rescue him. But the law of the Medes and Persians could not be undone. At the persecutors' insistence, Daniel was brought to the lion's den and cast inside. Then the door was closed shut. Darius returned to the palace, troubled and sleepless. He also went without food, consumed by worry for Daniel's safety. At dawn, he hurried to the mouth of the den and called out,
"Daniel, servant of the living God, has he whom you serve continually been able to rescue you from the lions?"
Daniel then answered,
"May the king live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They have not hurt me, for I was found innocent in his sight. I have done no wrong before you, your majesty."
Overjoyed, Darius ordered Daniel lifted from the den. Not a scratch was on him, His faith had protected him. The conspirators and their families were then seized and thrown into the den, and the lions overpowered them instantly. King Darius sent a decree to all nations and peoples that everyone must fear and serve the God of Daniel. And so, Daniel continued to thrive, honored and protected, as his wisdom and faith left a lasting legacy throughout the reigns of Darius and Cyrus the Persian. The story of Daniel reveals the enduring power of integrity, wisdom, and steadfast faith. Even when faced with exile, temptation, and danger, Daniel remained true to his principles and relied on a higher guidance from God. His courage and devotion earned respect and favor, yet also provoked opposition, showing that worldly pride often challenges righteousness. Ultimately, the story teaches that perseverance, clear morals, and trust in what is right can overcome deceit and fear, leaving a lasting legacy of honor beyond any earthly power.